One of the most important skills that you need to learn when it comes to investing in the NFT space is the ability to identify undervalued projects. It's one of those things that it's a little bit hard to do in the beginning, but I've actually come up with a list of 11 things that I personally look for when trying to determine if a project is undervalued. So by the end of the video, hopefully you can follow this kind of checklist type guide, and then you'll start to learn the mindset and learn how to identify these projects before they blow up. But yes, without further ado, let's get into it. Now we're just going to start off with this list here, guys, and then I'm going to go over 2 examples of undervalued plays that we recently found in the block investment group and made some plays on. But yes, we have the 11-step guide here, and number 1 on that list is the boring phase. So what exactly is the boring phase? And well, guys, in the NFT market, there are projects that go absolutely crazy, and it's what everyone is talking about, and it's in the top 12 trending, and it's boom this, boom this, boom this, right? Those are projects that are not in the boring phase. Those are projects in the hype phase where they have all the attention in the market. The opposite of being in the hype phase is being in the boring phase. And that's when a lot of eyes aren't on that project. There isn't a lot of volume. They're in the process of building things and working on things, but those things take time. And during that time, they're kind of like a dusty book on the bookshelf. I am looking for those dusty books. And sometimes it's hard to find them because there aren't a lot of eyes on them. But if you can find a project that you know is building something and they're kind of in their boring phase and a lot of people aren't paying attention to it, a lot of times I like getting into those projects because most of the time they are going to be undervalued as long as they're working on something. Part 2 here goes hand in hand with that boring phase, and its price has been discovered with strong support. NFTs can be very volatile, guys. They can go on absolute crazy runs and they can go on absolute crazy crashes. But a lot of times if a project is in its boring phase and there isn't a lot of volume in it, it will find a foundation or a support level at a certain price. And a lot of times it won't move very much higher or lower than that until something gets them out of the boring phase and now into the hype phase where people are paying attention to it. I like finding projects that have found a strong support level because that means the downside of that investment is very limited. If nothing has happened in a project that brought new eyes and investment on it, and it's been 188 ADA for 3 months, then most likely if something is to come later, there is a low likelihood of it dropping below that 180 ADA level. And by finding these projects that have discovered the price, you are going to have a lot less downside and a lot higher potential profit. Step 3 on the list here is no catalyst yet, but we know a catalyst is coming soon. I've talked about catalysts a lot in my previous videos. A catalyst is essentially some sort of news or some sort of event that changes the utility of the project or something that is going to get it out of the boring phase into the hype phase. Maybe think of staking or a new token, the Ape Society frames, maybe the clay marketplace. Think of different things that could bring a lot more eyes on a project. Dirtbirds, mini games that are happening in the future, right? These are different catalysts. And if a catalyst is coming soon and you know it's going to happen in a month, 2 months, or 3 months, a lot of times you can predict that that project will go up if that catalyst is actually a genuine catalyst. So look for projects that are building, guys, because just because they're in the boring phase and just because they found strong support doesn't mean they're ever going to go on a run. They'll only go on a run if they are building something that will be a catalyst that are going to bring new investors and new eyes on the project in. The next thing that I really like to look for in undervalued projects are strong communities and communities that have funds to actually buy the project. So you looked at Dirtbirds. Dirtbirds was 80 ADA for so long. Why has Dirtbirds gone on an absolutely insane run? Well, guys, even when they had a low ADA floor, they actually had a low percent of their NFTs listed. And you can go on different applications like CNFT Jungle, and you can actually see the amount of listings for a specific project. I like finding projects that have a low amount listed because that means the community is stronger. That means there's a lot more hodlers. And that means that when there is a catalyst and when more people start investing or seeing the project, the floor price is going to go up a lot faster because it doesn't take as much ADA to move that project. I also like finding communities that are large, that have a lot of funds, that might get excited when these new catalysts come out, and they might continue to reinvest more money into that project. If you look at something like Clay Nation and you see the community in Clay Nation, they have a lot of ADA in that collection, in that community. Ape Society, same thing. So all of a sudden, if you are investing in something like Ape Society and you know they have a lot of funds in Ape Society, you know there's a lot higher likelihood for something like Frames and something like a metaverse concept to be successful, whereas a project that's not even in the top 200 volume most likely won't have as strong as a community, or won't have as strong as a community fund-wise to really excel and push the project. The next thing I like to look for when it comes to investing in undervalued projects is narratives. Now, narratives can be pretty strong, such as Ape Society being the next Bored Ape Yacht Club when it comes to Ethereum. But one narrative that I like in particular is the narrative of comparison of some sort of utility. So for example, Ape Society has been going on a massive run. They have their Society token, and Society token has been going on an absolute run. So what could someone potentially think when it comes to other tokens in the ecosystem? Oh, wow, Society token went crazy. Maybe other tokens are going to go crazy. Oh, what about Clay token? Oh, Clay is also comparable to Ape Society because they're both major blue chips in the space, right? So now there might be some sort of narrative that has a tight enough connection where it should act as an additional catalyst for some sort of utility. And one of the best examples, like I said, is the Society token going crazy with a blue chip like Ape Society, and potentially people having the thought process, if Society token went crazy, maybe Clay token from Clay Nation will go crazy as well. So I like to try to find narratives or potential narratives of things that might blow up. Oh, Mutants raffle and staking system caused mutants to go up a lot. Okay, what if Dirtbirds did the same thing, right? These are the type of comparisons that are hard to find, but could be a strong enough narrative and correlation where a lot of other people think the same way. The next thing that I really like to look for is a competent and trustworthy team. I do not want to invest in a project, especially one that's not doing well, because it might not just be undervalued. It might just be a shit project because their team is not good, right? You need to find a team that you can trust, that you know isn't going to rug, that's constantly building, that's competent, that knows what they're doing. This is crucial. You look at Dirtbirds, you have Dave from Dirtbirds, you have Andy from Mutants. These are guys that were capable and that you knew that could actually build stuff and were actually hardworking and actually cared. It's really important when you're investing in these projects that aren't worth a ton of ADA to really find a team that you can get behind. Because if they don't have a team that you can get behind, there's a good chance that they're going to stay exactly where they were, and it's just going to keep going downhill. Number 7 on the list is a lack of knowledge or information. It's all about trying to find projects that are building something that a lot of people don't know about yet, and you, for whatever reason, knew about it, either from being in an alpha group like the Block Investment Group, or if you just so happen to be in different voice calls with the team, different AMAs, different Twitter spaces, different chats. If you know about something that is actually a big deal, but you don't think a lot of people have been exposed to that information, that could be a sign that you're onto an undervalued project, as long as that information is actually valuable. Next thing here is the importance of the asset. Now, a lot of time, and now this isn't for everything, guys, but a lot of times these different projects, they'll release different NFTs or different tokens or different aspects of their project. You have to be able to identify if that's an asset of importance. Is this just another mint that's diluting the whole entire project, like some sort of just random airdrop or another collection that they're releasing? Or is this an asset that is actually going to provide value in some sort of way? Clumsy Ghost, which is one of the examples I'm going to bring up, did their Clumsy Valley mint, and this is important for the staking of their Ghost. It's a one-to-one staking thing, and you're going to get the resources, and it's going to be crucial to the game. That means that those Clumsy Valley land plots have a lot of value. It's not some random BS thing. Same thing with Clay token. Is Clay token something that is actually valuable as an asset? Yes, you're going to be able to use it in the marketplace. You're going to be able to use it for these different things. So you have to see if what they're adding or what they're adding soon actually has importance. Number 9 here is market health. Now, the big thing is, guys, is that the market is doing shit. It doesn't matter how good the project is sometimes. Sometimes it just won't go up because the market doesn't support it. So you have to constantly be looking looking at the market. I don't like getting into these super undervalued plays, hoping they'll go on a run when they announce something or when they finally come out with something if the market isn't good, because there's not going to be enough volume to support that. Right now, we're in a market that's absolutely crazy. It's blowing up. I think it's just the beginning for Cardano NFTs. And because of that, it is a better strategy or a better meta right now to find these undervalued projects versus just getting into some of the blue chips or maybe just minting stuff, flipping it, whatever the case is. So identify how the health of the market is at that time. If the market health isn't good, then it's one of those things where it doesn't matter how undervalued it is. It might not move at all until a year, 2 years, whenever the market gets better. Next thing that I like to check here is just liquidity. A lot of times you'll get into these different projects and there's very little sales in them. And if there aren't a lot of sales, a lot of times that liquidity can really bite you in the butt, right? So you want to find projects that are still doing different trades. You might have found an undervalued project, but it's going to be too risky to get into it, guys, if they have no sales volume. You want to see some consistent sales volume, maybe in the top 50, maybe in the top 100 projects when it comes to sales volume on a weekly or monthly basis. If it's not in that top 100, then it better be something really good on the past part of this list that is going to bring in a lot more volume. Otherwise, you might just be dead in the market. The last thing that I like to look for on this list is the timeline. When are these different events or when are these different catalysts going to happen for that undervalued project? Is this something where they're building an application that's going to come out in 6 months? Is this something where they're building a game that's going to take 2 years? Is this something where they have staking in a month? Is this something that is going to be in a week? You need to be able to identify this timeline, because that is going to help build your strategy of how long you want to be in that project, right? And maybe you just want to be in that project forever, but that's when you have to identify that timeline. Okay, I'm getting in right now. When do I expect this utility or this catalyst to happen? I think this is an undervalued project. I've been able to identify it's undervalued. It's checking off all the things in this list. But when is this actual catalyst, or when is this thing that they're building actually going to be relevant, and if it is actually going to be relevant? So timeline is very important. Now that I've kind of gone over the list here, I'm going to go over 2 different examples of projects that we found that were undervalued in the Block Investment Group in the past month. And those 2 things are Clumsy Ghost as well as the Clay token. Now, Clumsy Ghost, number 1 here. Boring phase. Clumsy Ghost was the definition of a boring phase. They're building a game, they had their land coming out and all of this stuff, but not a lot of people were paying attention to the project. They have big things that they're building, big things that they're developing, but because it takes a while to build these things, a lot of people weren't paying attention to it, and you almost never saw it in the top 12 trending volume. It was really under the radar in this boring phase. Next thing here, price has been discovered with strong support. Even though they were in a boring phase, guys, this project never really went below 300 ADA. It would go from 300 to 400 to 350 to 300 to 350. Sometimes it would go down below 300, but it would bounce back up to 300 a lot of the times. So we knew when we saw this project, when it was between 300 and 350, that the downside would be very limited investing in this project, because the likelihood of it going down even more below that 300 support with upcoming catalyst is very, very low. Next thing here. No catalyst yet, but we know catalyst is coming soon. I briefly mentioned this, but there was nothing really happening with Clumsy Ghost, but then all of a sudden you had the Clumsy Valley mint, and now you're going to have the game sometime within the next 2 months where you're going to be able to stake your ghost onto these different basically pieces of land, right? That is a catalyst that is not only important or useful, but it is a catalyst that I believe is going to get more eyes on the project, and with more eyes means higher prices for their different assets. Next thing here, strong community with funds. Even in the boring phase, they had less than 5% of their NFTs listed at any one time. A lot of times they had 4% listed, and for a 10,000 collection, that is very good. They're also within the top 25, I believe, overall volume projects in the CNFT space. So in order to get to that level, a lot of times people in that community have to have a decent amount of funds, and with funds, guys, comes the ability to purchase other assets, such as their Clumsy Valley. Relevant narrative. Now, this one didn't necessarily come up with Clumsy Ghost as much, but recently a lot of projects that have been staking have been going on a decent little run here, and a lot of people like play to earn stuff, such as all this stuff happening with society, even though it's not really play to earn, it's more just passive income, right? So we can kind of make a little bit of a narrative, not a strong narrative in all honesty here, guys, that hey, they're gonna have staking with their Ghost soon, this should do pretty good. Maybe there's some sort of narrative there where people want to be able to get that passive aspect. Next thing here, competent and trustworthy team. This is why it's so important to be in an alpha group, guys, whether it's Jelly Cubes or some other project, because if it's a good alpha group, they're going to get the owners of projects onto the alpha group to talk. We had A from K come onto the alpha group where we basically grilled him for an hour and a half, 2 hours on Clumsy Ghost and everything that they were building. And he was so freaking competent and he knew every single answer that it gave me confidence that I could trust in that team. And because it gave me that confidence, I was then able to invest in the project knowing that these guys were serious builders, that they weren't idiots, and that they understood the space. And that is one of the best ways to find an undervalued project is if you can trust the team and trust that they are actually going to build stuff. Next thing here, lack of knowledge. Clumsy Ghost did not have a lot of exposure. One of the things that they are lacking or were lacking a little bit was just the marketing and exposure aspect. So a lot of people didn't have the knowledge of what they were actually trying to build. They didn't understand all of the different stats that these Clumsy Ghosts have. They didn't understand how these Clumsy Valley worked. They didn't understand all these different biodomes. They didn't understand this game was coming out sometime in the next 2 months. The lack of knowledge is something that I really like to look for because if I have that knowledge and I know a lot of other people don't, I have the competitive advantage now. And that's why it's important if you're in this space to constantly be keeping up to date with projects, to listen to YouTubers like myself or Blake or Thor, go on different Twitter spaces, be in different alpha groups. You need to be on top of this knowledge because that knowledge literally is power. Next thing here, importance of the asset. They had a catalyst come out, which is one of the things where I said over here, there's a catalyst, and that catalyst, one of the catalysts was the Clumsy Valley land. Now, is this land actually something valuable? Is this catalyst or what they're doing actually important? And in this situation, it is, guys. You have a whole community of people with 10,000 ghosts that are going to need one plot for every ghost they have, and this is how you're going to be able to get the resources to their game. It's not some BS NFT they released to make more money as a project. No, this is an asset that people are actually going to be able to need and actually use. And because of that, we can determine that this catalyst is actually valuable, meaning that this could actually be an undervalued project with something big coming along that will grab attention and will actually have importance. Next thing here, market health. It doesn't matter if you found an undervalued project if the overall market isn't doing well. Luckily for us, Cardano NFTs are blowing up, which means finding undervalued projects is kind of the meta right now. And yeah, the overall market's doing well. So we can expect one of their mints to do well with their Clumsy Valley. We can expect more people to get into Clumsy Ghost. And we can expect more people to come into the ecosystem once they actually see that news. Next thing here, liquidity. Now, liquidity is a little bit harder when it comes to actual NFTs rather than tokens, which I'm about to go over Clay token, but Clumsy Valley does get a lot of volume. They've had over 400,000 ADA volume already, and it's been less than a month. And once again, guys, the volume for Clumsy Ghost is about 2.6 million ADA worth of volume. So even though it's not as liquid as getting into a token, and there is some illiquidity issues when it comes to NFTs still, it is a lot more liquid than getting into a project that's not even in the top 100 or not even in the top 200. Next thing here, and kind of the last thing here, when it was coming to identify whether or not this project was undervalued, was just its timeline. What was its timeline? When were these different catalysts coming out? Okay, the land is coming out at the end of the month, last month. Okay, boom, that is a timeline. Maybe I buy some of these Clumsy Ghosts and I hold towards that land. Okay, what's kind of next here? Oh, well, they have the game. What's the timeline on the game? Oh, the game is coming out this year. Okay, so I know I can add a couple more months on that. Okay, what's after the game? What's kind of the timeline if I want to keep holding and I'm looking at this as a long-term investment? Oh, well, you're able to build battle bots with the resources that you can get from the game in Q1 of 2023. Okay, right? Like these are the different things I'm looking for. So I'm seeing the timeline, and it's not just a timeline where there's one big thing coming up like their land and then nothing after it and it takes another 6 months. No, Boom, we have the land. Boom, we have the game. Boom, we have the battle bots. And it's kind of like a sequence there. So I know there's going to be a lot of things happening in a very short amount of time. And there isn't going to be that many dead zones where all of a sudden the project is going to go back into its boring phase during that period of time. So overall, guys, I was able with the Block Investment Group to identify that this was an undervalued project overall. All of these things kind of came into alignment. And once I was able to check all these things off, it gave me a lot more confidence to invest in the project. I personally put about 9,000 ADA between minting 105 Clumsy Valleys and purchasing 10 Ghost off of the JPEG store off a secondary. And right now, I think literally within a month, guys, I haven't sold anything because I'm a believer in this project, but I'm literally up 32 to 34,000 ADA, which is over 4 times the return on my investment within a 1 month time period because I was able to identify this undervalued project. So yeah, it takes sometimes learning, knowing the market and having a healthy market, which has helped, but being able to find these undervalued projects definitely pays off if you do your time and due diligence. Now, the next example that I want to bring up here, guys, and I'm going to go over it a little bit quicker just because the Clumsy Ghost one kind of took forever, is Clay Token. Now, we actually just bought Clay Token on a couple of days ago at 0.023. I put in about a 35,000 ADA buy order. It was around here when I bought it, and then it's just been going on a crazy run since then. And this is kind of the reason, once again, guys, when I went through this list, why I felt comfortable buying this and why I actually think Clay Token is still going to continue to run, but not financial advice, and it's a little bit more risky, guys, so don't just ape into this. 1, boring phase. They came out with their token, no utility with the token. No one could use the token for anything. It wasn't like you could do raffles and all this stuff. It wasn't like Society where you could build frames. No, it was in its boring phase, and it's been in its boring phase. You haven't been able to do anything with Clay Token. So because of this, it had found strong support. It went all the way back down to 0.02, guys, and it almost never went below 0.2. I don't think it ever went below 0.2, besides maybe for brief seconds before people bought it up. So when we had put that buy order in, Clay Token was at like 0.021, I think, and because it was a 35,000 ADA buy order, I think it averaged out at 0.023, but I knew the downside was going to be limited because it was in its boring phase. Nothing was happening to it. Literally, they were going to do a launch bull, which actually hurt early investors, but they canceled that. And right 1 hour before they canceled it, the bottom was in at 0.02. So there was a high likelihood that it wasn't really going to go below that 0.02. So I knew my downside was going to be limited. Next thing here, no catalyst, catalyst soon. We know their marketplace is going to come out this month. They've been teasing it. I'll go over that in step number 7 here, but we knew that there was going to be a catalyst soon. We know that they have a lot of utilities planned for this Clay token, and we know that those catalysts are actually going to be important. Next thing here, strong community with funds. Clay Nation has one of the strongest communities out there. I really don't have to go over that. They also have a lot of money as well. So you know that they're not only capable, but they're not only willing, but they're also capable to invest in these different assets. And you know a lot of people in the whole entire Cardano NFT space are willing to invest in these different assets as well. Next thing here, relevant narrative. This is an example, a Society token going on an absolute run. So different people out there asking themselves, could the same thing happen with the Clay token? That's a really, really strong narrative. That's a really, really strong correlation, especially when so many people missed out on the Society run. They might be more willing to now invest in the Clay token, seeing a similarity there. Next thing here, competent and trustworthy team. You know you can trust that team. I don't even have to go over it. Number 7, lack of knowledge. Do we know something that is valuable and important where a lot of people in the space don't know about it yet? Yes, they have been teasing that their marketplace is going to come out in the month of October, where you're going to be able to buy stuff with Clay token, which is going to give a utility or a use case for their actual token, which they haven't had since they've launched their token. That is a lack of information because they haven't even posted an announcement about this, and a lot of people don't know about it yet. Is that now an importance? Is that now important? Is this asset important, and is what they're doing important? Well, guys, they are building a whole entire marketplace to use a token, and that token literally is going to connect the metaverse and every single thing that happens in the Clay ecosystem. I would say that is an important asset, and I would say a marketplace is actually a catalyst event that is actually going to be valuable and not some random drop that doesn't have any value. This literally is giving the importance of the asset that has had no importance to this date and time. Next thing here, number 9, market health. The market is very healthy right now. A lot of things are pumping. Clay nations have actually pumped from 2,800 to 4,000 ADA ever since this past week. So we know the market health is good. We actually know that Clay Nation has not pumped nearly as much as some of the other blue chip projects out there, such as Ape Society. Next thing here, liquidity. You can get in and out of tokens very, very easily, guys. You literally go to MinSwap and you can sell all of your tokens in an instant. So when it comes to investing in this, I'm not worried about it being illiquid where I can't get in and out of that investment because there's no eyes on the project or no one are buying and selling that project. I know with Clay Token that if I wanted to sell it, I could sell it like that, which gives me a lot more confidence in that undervalued play. Last thing here, timeline. They have been saying that this marketplace was going to come out in the month of October. That literally means that there was when we got in, less than a 15-day time frame of when this token should go on a run. That is a very, very short time frame. And when you expand the time frame and you look at the bigger picture, you know that you're going to be able to buy a bunch of stuff for your pitches. You know that you're going to be able to buy pants from it. You know that DeFi yield farming is going to come up soon. You know this whole entire marketplace. You know the DAO and the governance and the voting. So the timeline is absolutely perfect for this token too, because it should be going on a run because of that marketplace happening soon. And then there's going to be all these different things throughout time that should sustain that demand or should sustain that utility. That pretty much sums up this video. I hope this video helped you guys find some of these undervalued projects. And whether you're trying to flip things or swing trade things or just hold it long term, it is always awesome being able to identify and find these undervalued projects. Some of the best plays that you can make aren't necessarily new mints and finding the next gem, but really finding projects that are really building stuff that check off all this list, but a lot of people aren't paying attention to yet for whatever reason. So yeah, hope it helped you guys. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and good luck hunting.